basic Korean sentences source, howtostudykorean.com. Below is a list of vocabularies to be used in this lesson. Vocabulary. The vocabulary is separated into nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs for the purpose of simplicity. Click on the English word to see information and examples of the word in use. You probably won't be able to understand the grammar within the sentences at this point, but it is good to see as you progress through your learning. A PDF file neatly presenting these words and extra information can be found here. Want to give your brain practice at recognizing these words? Try finding the words in this vocabulary list in a word search. Nouns.
한국, 코리아 도시, 시티 이름, name 저.
I, me, formal.
나 equal I, me informal 남자 equal man 여자 equal woman 이 equal this 그 equal 대처 equal.
That, when something is far away.
것 equal 신 이것 equal.
This, thing.
그것.
That, thing.
저것.
That, thing.
의자 equal 체어 탁자 equal 테이블 선생님 equal 티처 침대 equal 베드 집 equal 하우즈 차 equal 카 사람 equal 퍼슨 책 equal 북 컴퓨터 equal 컴퓨터 나무 equal.
Tree wood.
소파 equal 소파 중국 equal 차이너 일본 equal 저펜 문 equal 도어 의사 equal 닥터 학생 equal 스튜던트.
Adverbs and other words.
이다.
To be.
안 equal not 네 equal yes 아니 equal no.
Greeting words. When learning a language, people always want to learn hello, how are you, and thank you before anything else. I know that. However, at this stage you only know words, and have no knowledge or experience in how to use or conjugate these words. The grammar within these words is too complex for you to understand right now. However, you can just memorize these words as one unit and not worry about the grammar within them at this point.
안녕하세요. 헬로 감사하다.
And
고맙다.
are the two words that are commonly used to say thank you. However, they are rarely used in those forms and are almost always conjugated. They can be conjugated in a variety of ways, which you won't learn until Lesson 5 and Lesson 6. I will show you a list of the more commonly used forms, but I can't stress enough that you won't understand how this works until later lessons.
감사합니다. 감사해요. 고마워. 고맙습니다. 고마워요. 잘 지내세요.
How are you? Technically the appropriate expression in Korean, but not as common as how are you in English. I would say that using
잘 지내세요?
is an English style of greeting people in Korean.
제발 equal please.
It is, of course, important for you to memorize these expressions in Korean, but you need to know that there is a reason why they are said that way. For now, don't worry about why they are said that way, and simply memorize them. We will get back to them in later lessons when they become important. Sentence word order. One of the hardest things to wrap your head around in Korean is the alien-like sentence structure. For our purposes in Lesson 1, Korean sentences are written in the following order: subject, object, verb. For example, I hamburger eater subject. Adjective. For example, I beautiful. I am going to quickly explain what a subject and object mean, as your ability to understand later concepts depends on your understanding of this. The subject refers to person, thing, noun, whatever that is acting. The subject does the action of the verb. For example, the subject in each sentence below is underlined. I went to the park. I will go to the park. My mom loves me. He loves me. The dog ran fast. The clouds cleared up. In English, the subject always comes before the verb. The object refers to whatever the verb is acting on. For example, the object in each sentence below is underlined. My mom loves me. The dog bit the mailman. He ate rice. Students studied Korean in English. The object always comes after the verb. However, a sentence with the verb does not require an object. For example, I slept. I ate. He died. Sometimes there is no object because it has simply been omitted from the sentence. For example, I ate or I ate rice are both correct sentences. Other verbs, by their nature, cannot act on an object. For example, you cannot place an object after the verbs sleep or die. I sleep, you, I die, you. Subjects are also present in sentences with adjectives. However, there is no object in a sentence with an adjective. The subjects are underlined in the following adjective sentences below. School is boring, I am boring, the movie was funny, the building is big, my girlfriend is pretty, the food is delicious. It is incredibly important that you understand this from the very beginning. Every Korean sentence must end in either a verb, like eat, sleep or walk, or an adjective, like beautiful, pretty, and delicious. This rule is so important that I'm going to say it again. Every Korean sentence must end in either a verb or adjective. It is also important to point out here that there are two ways to say I or me in Korean, depending on how polite you need to be speaking. Many things within a sentence, mostly the conjugation, can change. You won't learn about the different honorific conjugations until lesson 6, so you do not need to worry about understanding those until then. However, before you reach those lessons, you will see two different words for I, which are
나,
used in informal sentences, and
저,
used in formal sentences. As lessons 1-5 make no distinction of formality, you will see both
나,
and
저,
arbitrarily used. Don't worry about why one is used over the other until lesson 6, when politeness will be explained. Okay, now that you know all of that, we can talk about making Korean sentences. Full stop. Korean particles.
는,
And
를,
most words in a Korean sentence have a particle, a fancy word to say something, attached to them. These particles indicate the role of each word in a sentence, that is, specifically which word is the subject or object. Note that there is absolutely no way of translating these particles to English, as we do not use anything like them. The following are the particles you should know for this lesson.
는,
Or
은,
subject. This is placed after a word to indicate that it is the subject of a sentence. Use
는,
when the last letter of the last syllable of the subject is a vowel. For example,
나, 나는 저, 저는,
use
은,
when the last letter of the last syllable of the subject is a consonant. For example,
집, 집은 책, 책은 를,
or
을,
object. This is placed after a word to indicate that is the object of a sentence. Use
를,
when the last letter of the last syllable is a vowel. For example,
나, 나를 저, 저를 유즈을,
when the last letter of the last syllable is a consonant. For example,
집, 집을 책, 책을,
we can now make sentences using the Korean sentence structure and the Korean particles. 1. I speak Korean equals I.
는 커리언을,
Speak
는,
is attached to I. The subject
을,
is attached to Korean. The object. 2. I like you equals I.
는 유를,
Like
는,
is attached to I. The subject
를,
is attached to you. The object. 3. I wrote a letter equals I.
는 레터을,
Wrote
는,
is attached to I. The subject
을,
is attached to letter. The object. 4. I opened the door equals I.
는 도어을,
Opened
는,
is attached to I. The subject
을,
is attached to the door. The object. 5. My mom will make pasta equals my mom
은 페스터를,
will make
은,
is attached to my mom. The subject
를,
is attached to pasta. The object. I am sure that you will be tempted to start substituting Korean words into those constructions to make real Korean sentences. However, at this point, that is too complicated. The goal of this lesson is to familiarize yourself with the structure of Korean sentences. The same could be done for sentences with adjectives. However, remember that sentences with adjectives will not have an object. 1. My girlfriend is pretty. My girlfriend
은,
is pretty
은,
is attached to my girlfriend. The subject. 2. The movie was scary equals the movie
는,
was scary
는,
is attached to the movie. The subject. There is one more particle that you should be aware of before we go any further.
에,
Place or time. We haven't talked about places or times yet, but if you do an action at a time, you must attach the particle
에,
to the word indicating the time. Left double quotation mark
에,
is also attached to a word to indicate that it is a place in the sentence. I want to write more about what
에,
does, but at this point, It would only confuse you. For now, it is sufficient to know that
에,
is used to indicate a place in a sentence. Again, it is hard to translate these particles into English, but
에,
plays the role of the underlined words in the following sentences. 1. I went at 3 p.m. 2. I went to the park. Sentences with a place time can also have an object in them. For example, 3. I ate hamburgers at 3 p.m. If I were to write those same sentence using Korean structure and particles, they would look like this. 1. I
는 오후 3시에 웬투 2아이는 파크에 웬투 3아이는 햄버거즈을 오후 3시에 에이트.
In these cases, at 3 p.m. or to the park act as adverbs, a word that tells you when, where, how much. There is no set place for an adverb within a sentence, and it can generally be placed anywhere, except the end. Adverbs will be discussed at length in Lesson 8. Again, the purpose of this first part of Lesson 1 was to familiarize yourself with the different Korean particles and sentence structure. This knowledge will act as your base for upcoming lessons when you will apply yourself to make actual sentences with verbs adjectives in Korean. While you will have to wait a little bit to create those types of sentences, we can now talk about creating actual Korean sentences with the word to be.
이다.
Now it's time to learn how to make an actual sentence using the word to be. English speakers often don't realize how difficult this word is in English. Look at the following examples. I am a man, he is a man, they are men, I was a man, they were men. In each of those sentences, the word to be is represented by a different word, is am or was were, depending on the subject and tense of the sentence. Luckily, in Korean, the same word is used to represent is, am, are, was and were. This word is
이다.
should not be thought of as a verb or an adjective in Korean, as in most cases it acts differently. I will teach you how.
이다.
Differs from verbs and adjectives as it becomes important in future lessons. Sometimes, however,
이다.
is somewhat similar to adjectives. Remember that sentences ending with adjectives do not have objects in them. Whenever a sentence is predicated by an adjective, there will be no object in the sentence. Only sentences with verbs have objects. Let's look at some examples. I eat hamburgers. Eat is a verb. The object is a hamburger. I meet my friend. Meet is a verb. The object is my friend. I study Korean. Study is a verb. The object is Korean. I listen to music. Listen is a verb. The object is music. All of those sentences can have objects because the verb is the predicate of the sentence. However, in sentences that are predicated by adjectives, I am pretty, I am beautiful, I am hungry, I am smart, this means that we can never use the particle
을,
in a sentence predicated by an adjective, because
을,
denotes that there is an object. The object particle is also not used when using the word.
이다.
The basic structure for a sentence predicated by
이다.
is noun,
은는,
another noun.
이다.
For example, I
는 맨이다.
am a man. Now substitute the words for man and I.
나, 아이 남자, 맨 나는 플러스 남자 플러스 이다.
Gets attached directly to the noun. So, the above construction looks like
나는 남자이다.
I am a man. It is very important that you remember that
를,
is not attached to words in sentences with.
이다.
The following would be very incorrect.
나는 남자를 이다.
Is the only word that acts like this, and is one of the reasons why you should treat it differently than other verbs or adjectives. The focus of this lesson, and lessons 2 and 3, is to introduce you to simple Korean sentence structure. Until you reach lesson 5 and lesson 6 you will not be exposed to the conjugations and honorifics of Korean verbs, adjectives and
이다.
in reality, these words are never or very very rarely used without these conjugations and honorifics. Therefore, while I stress the importance of understanding the structure of the sentences presented in this lessons 1, 2, 3 and 4, do not use the sentences in any form of communication with Korean people, as they will most likely not be understood. In order to completely understand what is presented in lessons 5 and 6, and for the rest of your Korean studies, It is essential that you understand what is presented in these first 4 lessons, even though they may be seen as technically incorrect. For all of the technically incorrect, unconjugated sentences presented in Lesson 1-4, I will provide a correct, conjugated version of the same sentence in parenthesis below the unconjugated version, one formal and one informal conjugation. Note one more time that you will not understand these conjugations until Lessons 5 and 6, for verbs and adjectives, and Lesson 9, for
이다,
other examples of
이다.
in use.
나는 여자이다.
I am a woman.
나는 여자야. 저는 여자예요. 나는 선생님이다.
I am a teacher.
나는 선생님이야. 저는 선생님이에요. 나는 사람이다.
I am a person.
나는 사람이야. 저는 사람이에요. 나는 이다. equal.
I am a.
나는 이야. 저는 이예요.
You can substitute any noun into the blank space to make these sentences, this and that.
이 그저.
You can see in the vocabulary above that the word for this is
이,
in Korean. We use
이.
in Korean when we are talking about something that is within touching distance. For example, this pen, that is the one I am holding, just like in English.
이,
This is placed before the noun it is describing. For example,
이 사람,
this person,
이 남자,
this man,
이 여자,
this woman,
이 차,
this car,
이 탁자,
this table,
이 의자,
this chair. Unfortunately, there are 2 words for that.
그,
And
저,
early learners of Korean are always confused with the difference between
그,
and.
저,
We use
그,
when we are talking about something from a previous sentence or from previous context, regardless of if you could see it or not. Providing examples would be too difficult right now because you do not know any Korean sentences. However, if I were to say, I don't like that man, when your friend mentioned him in a previous sentence, the word that in that sentence would be how
그,
is used. We use
저,
when we are talking about something that we can see, but cannot touch because it is too far away. We can place
그,
or
저,
before a noun to describe this or that thing, just like we did with
이 사람,
this person,
그 사람,
that person,
저 사람,
that person,
이 남자,
this man,
그 남자,
that man,
저 남자,
that man,
이 여자,
this woman,
그 여자,
that woman,
저 여자,
that woman,
이 의자,
this chair,
그 의자,
that chair,
저 의자,
that chair,
이 탁자,
this table,
그 탁자,
that table,
저 탁자,
that table. Again, although the English translations of
그,
and
저,
are the same, it is important to remember that they are not the same word in Korean. One of the most common words in Korean is
것,
meaning thing, when
이, 그,
or
저,
are placed before.
것,
The result is a compound word. Therefore, when placing
것,
after
이, 그,
or,
저,
there should not be a space between the 2. In other words, the following are words in and within themselves, and not 2 separate words.
이것,
This thing,
그것,
that thing,
저것.
that thing. We see this same phenomenon happen with other common words that you learn in future lessons. You don't need to worry about this now, but we see this same thing happen with the word
곳,
meaning place and
때,
meaning time. With these words, the word thing isn't necessary in the English translation. Let me explain. I'll use that as an example, but the same idea can be applied to the word this. That can be placed before a noun to describe it, as we saw earlier, that person, that man, that woman. However, it can also be a noun itself. For example, I like that. In this type of English sentence, that is referring to something that you like. It is a noun. It is a thing. Therefore, the sentence could just as easily be said as, I like that thing. I don't like to use grammatical jargon in my lessons, but if you know what these words mean, it could be helpful. In both English and Korean, that can be a determiner, as in, I like that man, and it can also be a pronoun, as in I like that. When used as a determiner in Korean, you should place
그,
before a noun. When used as a pronoun in Korean, the word
그것,
is used in this same respect, while
이, 그,
and
저,
translate to this, that and that respectively, and are placed before nouns to indicate this noun, that noun and that noun,
이것, 그것,
and
저것,
are nouns. They are pronouns. Therefore, they do not need to be followed by the redundant word thing, although their meanings would be exactly the same. I like this thing. I like that thing. We can now use these nouns as subjects or objects in a sentence. We will look at how they can be used with.
이다,
Next, using this that with.
이다,
Remember,
이다,
translates to be and is conjugated as are in English. Now that we know how to use
이, 그,
and,
저,
and,
그것,
and,
저것,
we can now make sentences like this. That person is a doctor. We can start by putting those words into the Korean structure. That person,
는,
doctor is, and then changing the English words to the appropriate Korean words.
그 사람은 플러스 의사 플러스 이다 그 사람은 의사이다 그 사람은 의사야 그 사람은 의사예요.
More examples.
그 사람은 선생님이다.
That person is a teacher.
그 사람은 선생님이야 그 사람은 선생님이에요 이것은 탁자이다.
This thing is a table.
이것은 탁자야 이것은 탁자예요 저것은 침대이다.
That thing is a bed.
저것은 침대야 저것은 침대예요 그 사람은 남자이다.
That person is a man.
그 사람은 남자야 그 사람은 남자예요 그 사람은 여자이다.
That person is a woman.
그 사람은 여자야 그 사람은 여자예요 그것은 차이다.
That thing is a car.
그것은 차야 그것은 차예요 이것은 나무이다.
This thing is a tree.
이것은 나무야 이것은 나무예요.
Wow, that was an extremely difficult lesson. If you were to pick up another Korean textbook, I am sure the first chapter would be much easier than this. Trust me though, learning this at the start will be very useful to you later on. When I was learning how to speak Korean, it took me months to realize some of these things, not because they were hard, but because I was using a textbook that never taught me the reason why things are the way they are in Korean. Before you move on, make sure you understand the simple Korean sentence structure presented in this first lesson. Also, remember that the sentences not in parentheses are technically incorrect or very uncommon, because they have not been conjugated. For more info, please visit howtostudykorean.com.